Ms. Stefanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to both of our witnesses. Secretary Albright, it's an honor to meet you for the first time, and Mr. Hadley, it's great to see you. You're a great friend and served as such a role model in the Bush administration. I wanted to pick up on the line of questioning that some of my colleagues asked. When we consider this strategic relook and the context in which we operate in a 21st century global construct, what has changed over my lifetime and even over the past 5 years is the use of technology, and this is tied into Ms. Shea Porter's questions. We've seen Russia increasingly utilize hybrid warfare through propaganda, through influence campaigns, through shaping media coverage. Do you assess that we're adequately prepared to counter that propaganda by exporting the truth?
I don't think we are. I think you would think that we would be ahead in this particular aspect, but we have not, I think, taken advantage enough of great innovative spirit of Americans and somehow link it to what the needs of the government are. And in fact, that relationship between the government and the private sector on this, I think, is a very complicated one that needs to be explored in a way that it doesn't put censorship in, but does, in fact, create a better tool out of it. I'm not an expert on this, but there's some missing piece here that we have not, in fact, taken advantage of.
So that's what I'm interested in. I chair the Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee, and we've hosted a number of roundtables and hearings on this threat of hybrid warfare and what the U.S. role, what steps we need to take to adequately counter it. We used to have a U.S. information agency. Currently today we have what's called the Global Engagement Center within the Department of State. I'd like to get your guidance as to what specific steps we should be taking in the short term, in this Congress, and then in the longer term.
So I think you've got it exactly right. It's ironic that both the terrorists and extremists and the authoritarians like Russia are taking technology that we innovated and produced and using us to beat us in the public space every single day, day in, day out. We've got to counter it. And I think what your subcommittee do, there's a lot of views, some people that, well, we need to go back to what we did in the Cold War. But the context has changed and the technology has changed. And the question is, can we use that in an innovative way to get out ahead of it? For example, there was an article in the press that said that there are broadcasts now being made against the Lord's Army in Central Africa, this gruesome group that has been kidnapping children and sex slaves and all the rest for 15 years, broadcasting statements by members of that group from their family asking them to go home, and flying over the territory where they operate and broadcasting these messages, and it's having the effect. People are leaving the Lord's Resistance Army and going back to their villages. That's the kind of innovative thing that we ought to be doing, and I think what we need to do is not restore what we had in the Cold War, but figuring out how we can leapfrog and use the technology in a creative way to do the exporting truth in a more effective way. More effective than actually the authoritarians and the extremists. I don't know the solution, but your subcommittee could really bring in the witnesses to develop a toolkit for 21st century information operations, if you will.
One of the pieces of feedback we've heard is a challenge when you have a whole-of-government approach with multiple agencies engaged is the pace of 24/7 news cycle and the fact that at any given moment a tweet can come out and that's heard around the world. How do we structure an agency, whether it's the Global Engagement Center or something else, that is able to overcome just the pace of how information works in the 21st century?
I think it is very hard, and basically, let me just say on USIA, I'm the one that had it abolished because Senator Helms had suggested it, but it also made sense in terms of bringing it more into the department instead of something that was just so independent that it couldn't react in a way or have something to do with what our overall policies were. So I do think that there needs to be some way that the departments themselves are involved in it. Definitely should not go back to Cold War because different technology exists. But I think that the hardest part is how the rapidity of the information and how it's dealt with. And I'm surprised that we have not developed our technology enough to deal with that. But it's also because we have a free press, it makes it harder than, I mean, Russia today is a part of their government, and so they're able to direct what it's supposed to do. But I think you're on the right track. Be very happy to be involved in discussions with you if it's helpful.
Thank you, and my time has expired, but I'll follow up. Thanks.